not rap. Talk, but like in a real way, like real talk, like keeping it real. No,
The show's just so warm, and I think so much of the humor comes from the characters. I know, I think there's certainly the assumption that a network sitcom is going to be a little more broad and a little more situational, but this is so character based, and I think it just gives the show such a special, I guess, vibe to it. But I wondered, what makes it special to you?
I think you kind of nailed it. I think that's exactly it. It was weird because I didn't know what to do after my last show, and this was not the thing that I was going to do after my last show. And I didn't know Walton Goggins, and I was driving to the airport, and somebody texted me and said, "Do you mind if Walton calls you? He wants to talk to you." And I said, "Oh, I haven't read the script yet, but I'm gonna." And then I quickly read it, and before I could say, "Yeah, go ahead, he can call me," somehow he got my number from somebody else and called me, and I was like, I feel like you caught me before I did my homework. But so then we were chatting, and by the time I got to the airport and like through everything and onto the plane, I went from I don't know what I'm going to do next to maybe I do this, because he's so infectious.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, just his enthusiasm, his earnestness, he was just, what he said was, this is not going to be like hate to say it, but like a typical
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And he said, that's not what I want. It's going to be the look. It's just going to be, we're bringing in a film director. We're completely changing it up. And everybody has lost somebody. And I just felt like Casual was such a, like a heavy show for a comedy that I kind of thought maybe I do Happy, even though it centers around a guy who lost his wife. But maybe I make jokes and just do that for a while. Maybe that's a nice thing to do, especially after the last 44 years we've had,
I had been wondering, and I don't know that I've seen you talk about it elsewhere, but the fact that you and Rob are a couple, and you, again, as you said, have played together before. I mean, did that casting kind of come together at the same time? Do you have a sense of how that happened that way?
Oh, we were lied to. We were both lied to, and they dangled the other person, and he was told I was doing it, and I was told he was doing it, and neither of us had committed to it at that point.
Hollywood, classic Hollywood.
They worked us, and they won.
folks, I get it. This is fun. This is silly. This is fun. Okay, we're having a laugh, a good time. I need to bring everybody back down to earth right now. I need to bring you back down to the ground.
I wanted to say about your character specifically, Polly. I think she's so fascinating because, like, this is absolutely a show that is satirizing the millennial generation, I think, to put a broad point on it. But Polly has such a disdain for them.
Such contempt.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, what's your take on what do you think the show's take is on people like her? I mean, it's such an interesting perspective to bring into the show.
Oh my God! I mean, they nail it. They nail it when they said she's the kind of feminist that thinks you had to act like a man to get ahead, and you had to be a man to get ahead. And honestly, I get that. I am Polly's age, and that was a thing. Like, we all tried to like fit in these little, things where, like, sort of, I had to laugh at so many dick jokes, my whole life, so that the guys that I was working with knew I was down, so that they didn't treat me as like a woman. You know what I mean? So that I could have the same access to everything that they had, and it's so true. I mean, it's just, and so their commentary is clever and bright. And also, I love that they can laugh at themselves too, because, they're the first ones to make fun of themselves and their generation. And everything like that. So, and I think, like, everybody wants to put everybody in a category, and all the time, like it's what media does. We all do it, and it's so our brains can understand what we're dealing with. And, I don't think it helps society, but I also see why we do it. It's like, it starts very early, right? You have a dad that's like, you're the one that's good at math and you're the one that's good at swimming. And then you just grow up going, I'm the one that's good at math. And I can't, and you have all these prefixed ideas of your own limitations because you're the one who's not good at swimming or whatever it is. And fixed mindset, I guess it's called. And I just feel like millennials don't have that. And God bless them.
A little help from her friends.
Well, are you talking about getting pregnant or going to war? Basically, they're the same thing.
Now I want to get truly random and go into what IMDb lists as your first on-screen role, which was in a film from '98 called Inconceivable.
Oh my God.
Now, so I'm sorry to say I have not seen, so I don't know that much about it, but
what?
Yeah.
Oh, get thee to a VHS store stat.
Was this a project, in my understanding of, I guess, your general life and career timeline, was this a project that you did while you were in Portland before you moved to LA?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I was in an improv group in Portland. I was doing theater. I got my equity card there, so I was doing like a lot of equity theater and feeling like, oh, could really be my profession. Then I started doing commercials there, got my SAG card. And then I auditioned for this movie that they were shooting there. And, I was fresh out of college pretty much. I had lived like a very ridiculous year in New York where I was basically starving to death. And then I went to Portland, and it's true what they say on the show. Like, it's where, 20-somethings go to retire. I was like, wait a minute, I bartend one night and I can have a steak dinner whenever I want. It has to be at a strip bar, but I could still have it.
It's a good deal. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was such a great choice I made. I'm sorry, I know that wasn't the question, but it was such a great choice. And I kind of wanted to tell every single actor, don't feel like you have to go to New York and LA out of the gate. Like, go get good somewhere else and then come to New York and LA. Otherwise, you're just going to hate yourself or your job or this career, or the one drawback is the thing that I felt a lot, which was by the time I got my feet on the ground in LA, by the time I just sort of was in Portland going, I don't want to do theater anymore. I want to be on a sitcom. I was older, so there was that. And I think I always have this joke that I'm doing everything 5 years later than I should be. Like I was on SNL like 5 years later than I should have been, it's like I met my husband like 5 years later than I should have, so it was, excuse me, my voice is all cracky, but it was such a smart thing in terms of sort of getting to know my own voice, what I find funny, what I find interesting, and how I work, and finding a process that by the time I came here, I had this weird, dare I say, confidence, because I don't think anybody who knows me would describe me as having overloaded with confidence, but it was this sort of quiet kind of inner notion that I wasn't bad at what I did. And that took a while to get there.
There you are. There you all are, Matthew.
I believe that New Adventures of Old Christine then was like your first recurring role, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So was it at that point that you were like, oh, good, I feel good that I've made it then? Or you had so many guest roles in so many other series before that. I mean, I just noted, I was an avid Malcolm in the Middle watcher. So I saw that was noted, and you were in Grey's Anatomy. Like, was it one of those that you were like feeling good about it, or did it take till New Adventures?
I started, when I got to LA, it was a lot of commercials. And then I was coming up through the Groundlings. So the more I got to perform at the Groundlings, the more fun I had. I was, taking I was taking an audition class too. So it was like all the things I was taking a stand-up class, and I would go and do open mics and stuff. So everything was I was very busy doing what I love to do. And then waiting tables, which I weirdly also, I hate to say it, not popular. I loved waiting tables. I don't want to go back to it ever, ever, ever again, but I was really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
I was very invested in everybody enjoying their time with me.
I get that. I used to scoop ice cream at Jenny's Ice Creams, and that's the same thing. I was like, this moment, you and I'm scooping ice cream, I'm in it.
We're having a thing.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it was a very high-end restaurant, which nobody really wanted that from me. But but they just wanted, me to go away. And but I could take a hint. I also was a bartender, and I got to develop so many characters there because I saw so many characters and then go do them on the Groundlings stage here in LA. So it was like by the time, to answer your question, sorry, I'm having way too much fun talking about myself. I usually hate talking about myself. But by the time I did Old Christine, and it just felt like I'm doing exactly what I love. And seeing Julia Louis-Dreyfus do her thing was so important for me because that was the thing, right? Like I was like, what she's doing, that's the goal. That's what I want, and I love her. I mean, she brings everybody together, makes everybody feel good, and she laughs her face off at everything. She's so supportive of you. Everybody's so tricked into this cutthroat idea of Hollywood, and I just avoided shitheads the whole time. I mean, I bypassed a few, but not that I felt like sent me reeling in any way. I never had the dramas like that. And I always said to myself, if I ever get my own show, I'm going to comport myself and be like Julia.
Here's who's hot and who's definitely not. In Best Supporting Actress, Amy Adams. As a princess in Enchanted, she's hot. As a nun in Doubt, she's not. Bitch, please.
Speaking of Julia Louis-Dreyfus, here's a segue.
Right.
So it's right before Obama had just been elected, like minutes earlier. So everybody was feeling very plucky and happy anyway. And I had gotten this call from my manager saying SNL wants you to come test again. And I had tested the year before, like gone, and I used up everything. I gave them all my characters. I just gave you 5 years of characters in my audition. And this is a year later. Also, it was crazy because they said they want to fly you tomorrow kind of thing. So, and everybody else who was going to New York had like 2 weeks. So anyway, long story short, I go to New York. I don't hear anything for like a month and a half. We're shooting Old Christine. I get a call from the NBC switchboard, and they had a big cast that day, so I had to be shuffled all the way over to the other side of like this whole lot, basically, at Warner Brothers, to go to my dressing room, which was like, in a lean-to. No, it wasn't. It was like not part of the set normally where it's happening. Now, we're doing a show for an audience, so I couldn't be away from it. My phone kept dying. Every time I called back the switchboard, I realized I was calling Lorne. And every time Lorne would say he wasn't available. Somebody would say, Lorne wasn't available. Can he call you back? And then they'd say, Michaela, we need you on set. And then so I have to go and shoot the scene. As this whole two things are converging. Right before curtain call, I finally connect with Lorne. He says, we'd love you to come do the show. I haven't told anybody. I walk onto stage for the curtain call. I'm shocked. I have to fly. I have to move to New York in 5 hours. I have 2 cats. I'm shocked. It's 9:00 at night. I haven't, what? And so I am standing there and we're bowing, and I turn to Julie and I go, I just got SNL. And she goes, what? I go, I just got SNL. She grabs me, pulls me into a big bear hug. And then she says, I'm going to get drinks. And I was like, my cats. And she said, we're getting drinks. And the cast went out. We had a little cheers. And then I went home and was like, I hadn't even told anybody. I just hadn't she was the first one.
I had read that you had talked to Daily Beast and you had told them about how your time on SNL just kind of shifted your perspective on how you wanted to approach your work moving forward. And I wondered if you could tell me a little bit about that. I mean, did you have different goals after that? Or did you, I mean, was LA still the place you wanted to be? Or how did that shift things for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I wanted to come back to LA. Groundlings was my comedic home, and I immediately tail between my legs, like having just been booted from SNL after one season. I mean, I know it has happened, but I don't think it had happened. And then it happened a lot afterwards, but I don't think it had happened much before that happened. It just felt like such a public rejection, you know what I mean? But I did not want to be somebody who had been the girl who was like fired from SNL, you know, after one season. I wanted to make SNL part of my becoming, you know, like, and that it wasn't immediate. I was on unemployment. Going back and bartending felt very depressing to me. So I started writing, and that's when my friend from the Groundlings, Damon Jones, and I wrote a pilot, and that became a series called Benched for USA. But that was really just a place to sort of feel like I had some agency in my life after, you know, kind of being moved around the country and then being moved back around, you know what I mean? It just felt like the only thing I had control over was the script that, for all I knew, nobody was going to read.
He could text back.
Yeah, he could. In 4 months, at 2 a.m.
Thinking about the timeline of this being an original streaming show on Hulu, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but in some senses, it was one of the first like streaming platform original series, which is wild to think about. And I don't know. I just wondered if you had perspective on it now, or what your thoughts were about when you first started it. Were there nerves about doing something for Hulu that was original?
I just feel like when I'm 150 years old, I'm just going to continue to look at that time and those 4 years as being the luckiest person I know. I mean, what's unlucky is that, unfortunately, because it was one of Hulu's new originals, when they branded themselves, that it didn't have a ton of eyes on it. But, it's up. If people want to find it, they can find it. But I think it was such an incredibly special show. I can't believe the roster, like you said, of directors. It was 70% female indie film directors who had come on. A few first-time directing TV, but had done their own movies, like Hannah Fidel and Amy York Rubin. But just, she's so wonderful. Who did Jenny Slate's movie?
Oh, Jillian.
Child. Yes, Jillian.
Yeah.
And then of course Lynn, which was like a life-changing moment for me, because she and I got on like a house on fire, and we kind of, it's weird. It's like it was predestined in a way. We just knew we would. And we found each other on Twitter because I'd met her one time at Sundance. I'd seen her movie, and she'd seen some of my stuff, and we just were mutual fans. And then I just remember the tweet where she's like, "Guess who's coming to direct you?" And it was going to be my first time really meeting her, not just on the street, fangirling over her. And I couldn't believe her incredible talent and her gift and her abilities. And I don't say that lightly. I got to tell you, like, we were done every day at 4 p.m. and we did a couple takes, and they were the best episodes. Casual. I mean, Jason Reitman really, 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 really took a chance on me, in the sense that he went to bat so hard for somebody that the network couldn't be less interested in hiring. And you know, his joke was like, don't worry, after the first season, they're going to take all the credit for it. But, you know, that we got to do 4 seasons of it, and Tommy Dewey and Helen, who's the producer, are my closest, my nearest and dearest. I'm getting ready to work with Liz Tigelaar again, and who was our showrunner, and Xander Lehman, who is but a wee lad, 28, when he wrote these scripts that were so emotionally intelligent, and the story that he told in his relationships, I don't think I'll ever. No, I don't want to say that. May that be one of many experiences like that. But as of this point in my life, that was the best experience I've had in television ever.
What you were looking at is a genuine relic that supports the actual truth, which is the South won the war.
Okay. The South won the war?
That's right. This is something you want to keep under your hat till you're ready to
Seems
not
like
keep
pretty
it
big
under your
news.
hat.
I guess to touch on Lynn again, obviously, like, just totally heartbreaking, and I can't even begin to imagine what that loss was like. But what's your thought on what her filmography in general mean? Like, her perspective, I think, is so specific. But what do you think it represents? Kind of what she's saying through her work.
I think it's so personal, you know. I think as much as she wants to be asked to the prom and to direct all these big, probably Marvel movies and things like that, which she was certainly on that trajectory, you know, her happy place was telling her own stories and doing them her way, and for very little money and with very like tiny crews, and the intimacy was her name of the game. She stayed in Seattle, you know, she stayed in her, like, she's just so grounded. She stayed tethered to knowing where she'd come from and where she's rooted. And then also so expansive, but not expansive like LA expansive, expansive like divine expansive, you know. I think that she just, everything was possible to her, and the limitations made her laugh. But she never felt like she had to do, I mean, whatever she was wrestling with or tormented by internally found its way into her movies. And as she processed them, I think by making the movie, she was able to really move on and then do the next thing. And it makes me laugh that, you know, when she died, she was incredibly in love and incredibly in love with her son and her life, you know, as well as, you know, this new relationship that she was in, and that her last movie was this like comedy, you know, and with him, and, you know, surrounded by her people, like everybody she's always worked with, you know, we're all there, and there's like, I don't see her in this movie. I don't see anything that she was wrestling with or tormented with. This just felt like folly for her, you know. And in a weird way, it's just interesting that ended up being her last film. I can't even believe I say it's her last film, because I need her here, but I also, I mean, I want her here so badly, but I used her as such a North Star for me, who's of a woman who is slightly older than me, doing so much. And we need these people, you know, in our lives to show us things to look forward to and get excited about as we go, you know, and all the boundaries that we can break. And the fact that I just don't get to see the movies that she was most interested in making, which are women in their 50s, makes me so sad, because if there's anything women need to see, it's movies about women in their 50s, you know, and she was going to make good ones.
You know what? The babysitter called and said that you were in the hospital, so I rounded up the kids and told them to prepare for the worst.
She did say that, yeah.
Hi, Dad.
You're married.
This is my ex-wife Jackie.
Hi,
This is my
Jackie.
son.
It was such an AV Club favorite. Is Trophy Wife, which
Oh,
was
yeah.
one of those, like,
You guys were so supportive of that show. It's amazing.
Well, it's a delight. It's so fun, and I really liked your work in it. I mean, my take on it is that she is a lot looser than some of the characters we get to see you play. She's a little more carefree, I guess, in a sense, and I love seeing that side of you too. In that
I know.
role.
I do mourn her because, first of all, I miss my son on that show.
Yes.
But I mourn her so much because I got to do anything I wanted. I mean, there was nothing, like if this character was like, oh, I play the flute, then, she plays the flute. Like I could say anything could pop out of my mouth and then they would show up in a later episode where I got to do it. Like if she came in riding a Pegasus because she always had a dream seeing herself. I'm just saying that it's not unfathomable that they would write a scene where, she is trying to fulfill her lifelong dream to ride a Pegasus. So I think that kind of freedom is something that's not afforded a lot of characters, female characters. They're the ones who are usually holding shit together, holding it down, keeping everybody safe and nurtured. And
now we know, had there been another season, we would have seen her on a Pegasus. That's what was coming. And we missed out.
We really did. Yeah. Dumb network execs.